My mother-in-law is celebrating her 60th birthday, and 75 guests are coming. They are all staying at our house for a month. My husband told me this, thinking I would be delighted, but I calmly finished my breakfast. I grabbed my suitcase and walked out of the house. An hour later, I received a hysterical call from my husband. "Your mother can't pay at the restaurant. Why did you block the card?" Faced with my firm response, my husband had no choice but to lean against the wall, slump down, and cover his face with his hands. I would appreciate it if you would like the story I am about to tell you and subscribe to the channel. Make yourselves comfortable and listen. Hannah's alarm was set for 7, but she woke up at 6 inches the morning. Through the gap in the curtains, only the first light of dawn filtered in. She lay there for a few minutes, listening to the steady breathing of her husband, who was sleeping beside her. Then she got up without making a sound and went to the kitchen. She switched on the light and started the coffee machine. While the water was heating, she took a yogurt from the fridge and sliced a kiwi fruit, arranging it neatly on a plate. These were her usual morning movements, ingrained over 8 years of marriage. Her husband, Liam, was still asleep, and she liked that. Lately, she had begun to appreciate this time alone in the early morning, to be able to think without interruption. Hannah worked as a project manager at an advertising agency. Her salary was good, about $6,000 a month after tax, and bonuses from large clients could sometimes reach $2,000 or $3,000. She had always managed her finances meticulously. She had an emergency savings account into which she deposited a portion of her income each month, at least $800 and up to $1,500 when she had a good project. Liam knew about the account but not the exact amount. She felt no need to inform him. That money was the result of her work, her stress, her sleepless nights in front of the computer, modifying presentations for demanding clients. In the last 3 years, nearly $25,000 had accumulated in that account. Hannah did not touch this money lightly. It was her safety net, her independence, the possibility of leaving at any moment if something went wrong. And now, sitting in the kitchen with a hot cup of tea, she realized her premonition had been correct. The tea had steeped well. Hannah sat by the window and watched as the sky brightened. The city was slowly waking up. A few cars passed on the street, and the lights in the neighbors' windows came on one by one. The screen of her phone on the table was dark. The previous night, her mother had sent her a message. "Darling, are you all right? You haven't called in a while." Hannah had replied briefly, "I'm fine, just busy with work." Her mother lived in Wellington, an hour's flight away. When Hannah was 15, her parents divorced. Her father left with another woman, and her mother raised and educated her alone. She was a strong woman who never complained or sought pity. "You have to learn to stand up for yourself," her mother told her when a teenage Hannah came home crying after a fight with some classmates. "No one will do it for you, remember that. It's more important to respect yourself than for others to like you." Hannah remembered those words. She did not stay silent when classmates called her a nerd for getting good grades. Once, the class leader publicly humiliated her for her old backpack. Hannah silently stood up, walked over to her, and said, "My brain works. You're just jealous because only your mouth works." The whole class held its breath. After that, the girl never bothered her again. The same thing happened at university when an economics professor gave her an unfairly low grade on an exam. He gave her a pass instead of an A, despite her answering all the questions correctly. She did not hesitate to go to the head of the department's office. She brought her notes and the textbook and submitted a written request for a review with her reasoned answers. The committee sided with her. The professor looked at her with suspicion from then on, but he never tried to bother her again. It also happened at work when Mr. Robertson, her boss, tried to blame her for someone else's mistake. A designer had failed to deliver the mock-ups on time, and the project was canceled, but he tried to place all the responsibility on Hannah. Unfazed, she collected all the emails she had sent to the designer, the messages reminding him of the deadlines he had missed, and presented them to the management. The documents spoke for themselves. The responsible party was quickly identified, and it was not her. Her colleagues respected her for this very reason, for her ability to not back down and to defend her rights. She did not tolerate any kind of disrespect. She met Liam 5 years ago at the advertising agency's Christmas party. Their companies collaborated. Hannah's agency handled the advertising for the software products developed by Liam's company. He was a programmer and led a small team. At the party, he seemed attractive, tall, well-built, and well-dressed. He had a sense of humor and held interesting conversations without being crass. He approached her first, offered her a glass of Sauvignon Blanc, and they started talking. His courtship was flawless. He gave her flowers every week, not the typical roses, but lilies or irises, her favorites. He took her to great restaurants with good food, not cheap places. He gave her sincere compliments, not cliché phrases. 6 months later, he proposed, and Hannah accepted. She thought he was the man she was looking for, reliable, with a good job and common sense. They married a year later. The wedding was simple: 30 guests in a small restaurant, a simple white dress. Hannah disliked ostentation. A year later, they got a mortgage for a new-build apartment on Auckland's North Shore. It was a quiet residential area with a park nearby. Liam contributed $70,000 for the deposit, money he had saved over years of work. Hannah agreed to pay half of the monthly mortgage payment, $1,400. Everything was fair and agreed upon. They even signed a relationship property agreement. As Liam had paid the deposit, the apartment would be his property, but the rest of their assets would be divided equally. The first year in the apartment was good. They bought furniture and decorated it together. While Liam hung wallpaper, she painted. They chose the sofa together and assembled a modular wardrobe. They seemed like a team. But gradually, subtle problems began to emerge. The truth was that Liam followed their agreements selectively. They agreed to share household chores equally. Cooking, cleaning, laundry, everything 50/50. But after 6 months, all of this had become Hannah's responsibility. Liam's excuses were always the same. "I just don't cook as well as you do. My food turns out like some tasteless mash, and I'm terrible at cleaning. I never see the dust. Honestly, I'd rather take out the rubbish or do the grocery shopping." The supermarket was in the next building, a 3-minute walk, and the rubbish was taken out once every 3 days. In short, his contribution to household chores was about 10 minutes a week. Hannah didn't argue. She just did her work in silence, thinking, well, it's still bearable, it's not a big deal. In the end, she would come home from work at 7 p.m., prepare dinner, clean, and do the laundry on weekends. Liam would arrive at 8, sit in front of the television, or get lost in his phone. Sometimes he would help with the dishes or vacuuming, but that was the exception, not the rule. However, there was one thing she absolutely could not tolerate: Liam's attempts to make decisions that affected them both without consulting her. And that was something Hannah nipped in the bud, immediately and decisively. The first incident occurred a year ago. On a Friday afternoon, Liam had invited his friends over for the weekend without telling her. Hannah arrived home around 7, exhausted after a difficult week. She had been working late to close a big project. She dreamed of only one thing: taking a bath, lying on the sofa with a book, and thinking about nothing. But when she opened the apartment door, 3 men with beers and pizzas were already settled in. The table was covered in bottles, and the air was a mix of food and smoke. Someone was smoking on the balcony. "You're here!" Liam exclaimed excitedly. "My mates have come over. We're going to watch the rugby. This is Ben, Dave, and Mike, mates from uni." Hannah, without a word, went to her bedroom and closed the door. She took off her shoes and put on comfortable clothes. She was boiling inside but kept her composure. When she returned to the living room, Liam's friends were already shouting while watching the game. She looked at her husband with cold eyes and said in a low but very clear voice, "Liam, come here for a moment." Puzzled, he followed her. In the hallway, Hannah, calmly but emphasizing each word, said, "This is my house too. You have no right to invite people over without asking me. I'm tired and I want to rest. And now there are strangers in my home. Either they leave right now, or I'm going to my mother's, and I won't be back for a long time." A bewildered Liam tried to make excuses. "But honey, what are you saying? They'll leave soon. They're only staying for a couple of hours to watch the game. It's not right to kick them out. That's harsh." Hannah repeated coldly, "Them or me. You decide." Liam realized she wasn't joking and gave in. He went back to his friends and told them something unexpected had come up, that his wife wasn't feeling well and they had to go to the hospital. The friends looked at each other, annoyed. One of them tapped his temple with his finger, but they gathered their things and left. As they were leaving, one of them, Ben, said to Liam, "Mate, you need to get your wife in line. She's going to walk all over you." Hannah heard it but said nothing. The important thing was that they were gone. Afterwards, Liam tried to start a scene. He shouted that it wasn't normal, that his friends were offended, that she had embarrassed him, and that she didn't respect him. Hannah, standing by the window, looked out at the street and listened in silence. When he got tired and fell silent, she said, "Did you understand me? Don't ever do it again. Next time, give me a heads up and ask me if it's okay." And then, she went to sleep on the sofa in the living room, ostentatiously taking a pillow and a blanket. Liam stood in the doorway, muttering something, but she didn't respond. For a week, they barely spoke. When Hannah came home from work, she would prepare dinner just for herself, eat in silence, and lock herself in the bedroom. Liam tried to talk to her several times, but she responded with monosyllables. The atmosphere was icy. 7 days later, Liam approached, sat next to her on the sofa, and said, "I'm sorry. I was wrong. I should have asked you. I get it now." Hannah nodded. "All right, but remember, I won't tolerate being ignored." He nodded and promised. There were a few months of calm. The second incident occurred 6 months ago. Liam called her from work to tell her euphorically that he had signed them both up for a gym. It was an annual membership with a 40% discount, and he had to decide quickly. The offer ended at 6 that evening. Hannah was in the middle of a client meeting and took the call in the hallway. "Did you ask me if I want to go to that gym?" she said. He was surprised. "A month ago, we said it would be good to get some exercise and get in shape." She replied, "We talked about it in abstract terms. We didn't choose a specific gym, we didn't talk about prices, and we didn't decide when to start. But you made the decision all by yourself." He began to justify himself. The offer was ending, and it was to save money. "I did it with good intentions." Hannah didn't let him finish and hung up. That evening, when she got home, Liam greeted her with a guilty look. On the table were 2 gym memberships. He tried to explain. It was a bargain. Normally, for both of us, it would cost $1,800, and I got it for $1,000. We saved $800. Hannah listened to it all and then said coldly, "Cancel the membership and get the money back. The next time you make a decision that affects us both without consulting me, I will leave without saying a word, without any explanation. I will just pack my bag and go." Liam tried to argue. "How can I cancel it? It says it's non-refundable." "They won't give me the money back." Hannah repeated even more coldly. "Either you cancel it, or I'm leaving right now." She stood up, went to the bedroom, took a suitcase from the wardrobe, and started packing. Liam ran after her. "What are you doing? You're not really leaving, are you?" She continued packing in silence. Seeing she wasn't joking, he picked up the phone, called the gym, shouted, argued with the manager, and threatened to report them to the Commerce Commission. Half an hour later, he returned and said, "Sorted. They're refunding the money in 3 days." Hannah nodded, unpacked the suitcase, and put it away. From then on, Liam became more cautious, but it didn't last long. The problem was deeper. Liam had been raised in a home where his mother directed everything, and his father obeyed in silence. That's how things worked in his house. His mother-in-law, Sharon, decided, and the others complied. Where to go on holiday, what to have for dinner, what wallpaper to choose, what car to buy, she decided everything. Liam's father was a quiet man. He worked his whole life as an engineer at a factory, and when he came home exhausted, he had no energy to argue with his wife. It was easier to agree. Liam had absorbed this model, but he saw himself in the director's role, not his father's. He sincerely believed that in a family, the man should make the decisions, and the woman should support him. Hannah understood this, and thought that one day, something would happen that would make her simply turn around and leave. The question was, what would be the final straw? For the last 3 months, Liam had been talking to his mother often. The mother-in-law, who lived in Napier, had been widowed for 5 years. Liam's father had died suddenly of a heart attack at work. Since then, the mother-in-law had become even more attached to Liam, her only son. She called him every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times, to tell him trivial things, complain about noisy neighbors, prices at the shops, and the bad weather, and to give him advice on how he should live with Hannah. "Liam, tell your wife to make you a good roast lamb more often. A man needs a hearty meal. Liam, when are you going to have a baby? I'll be 60 soon, and I want to hold a grandchild in my arms." Hannah overheard these conversations in silence. She saw her mother-in-law a couple of times a year, on rare occasions. Sharon would come to visit for a week, sometimes 2, loaded with huge bags full of homemade preserves, jams, pickles, and chutneys. And as soon as she arrived, she would start giving orders. "Darling, you don't store pots like that. You put them this other way. Hannah, why did you put up these curtains? You should have chosen lighter ones. Oh, my son is so thin. Aren't you feeding him?" She criticized everything, the renovations, the furniture, the cooking, the cleaning, and tried to teach them how to do everything her way. Hannah put up with her until she crossed her personal boundaries. When that moment came, she would simply get up, go to another room, and close the door. She would put on her headphones and read, "Work or leave the house on any excuse. I have to go grocery shopping. I'm meeting a friend. I need to stop by the office." And she wouldn't come back until late at night when her mother-in-law was already asleep. Liam would get desperate. "How can you treat my mother like that after everything she does for you?" Hannah would respond coldly. "What exactly does she do? Criticize me and try to tell me how to live my life. I'm 32 years old. I'm an adult. I know how to live my life." Sharon, offended, would call Liam crying, "Your wife doesn't respect me. She's so rude. After everything I do for you both." Hannah didn't care. She knew her limits and didn't let anyone cross them. 3 weeks ago, Liam came home from work particularly excited. His eyes were shining and he was grinning from ear to ear. Mum called with some news. It's her 60th birthday soon, and she's going to have a party. It's a milestone, and it has to be celebrated properly. Hannah nodded. "That's nice. Of course it should be celebrated." Liam told her the date. 3 weeks from now, on a Saturday. Hannah thought, "Okay, we'll go to Napier. We'll attend the party and come back. One day is no big deal." Liam added, "Mum wants to get the whole family together. We haven't seen each other in a long time. They all live far away. It would be great to see everyone." Hannah, suspecting nothing, nodded again. "All right, let her invite them." Then Liam started giving details. Sharon wasn't planning a modest family dinner, but a grand event. His late father's older brother's family would come from Christchurch, with his wife and their 2 adult children. The mother-in-law's sister, his aunt, lived in Tauranga and would come with her husband, Liam's cousins, at least 10 or 15 people. Hannah sighed inwardly. "What a large family. I can handle one day. We celebrate, give her the gift, and everyone goes home." But Liam continued. Sharon wasn't just gathering the family. She had prepared a long and detailed guest list. She had found a restaurant with a banquet hall in the center of Napier. She had ordered a cake from an expensive bakery and had hired a host and a music group. Hannah nodded, half listening. It didn't affect her directly yet. If her mother-in-law wanted to go big, that was her right. 2 weeks ago, Liam gave her more details about the restaurant. A hall for 100 people, a varied menu, hot dishes, cold appetizers, salads, desserts, live music, a host with games. It's expensive, about $12,000, but it's her 60th birthday. You only turned 60 once. Hannah looked up from her laptop. 100 people. Where did so many come from? Liam shrugged. Family, Mum's friends, neighbors, work colleagues. Mum worked at a school her whole life. She knows a lot of people. Hannah asked. And who's paying the $12,000? Liam hesitated, scratching his head. Well, I guess we are. Mum's a pensioner. She can't afford it. With her pension of a few $100s a week, where would she get that money? Hannah grew thoughtful. $12,000 was a lot of money. She asked. We are you and me? He nodded. Yes, We're a family, aren't we? Hannah weighed the situation. She could afford about $6,000. She said, "From my side, a maximum of $6,000. You put in the rest." "Okay," Liam said, delighted. He smiled broadly. "Great, deal. I'll tell Mum. She'll be so happy." Hannah went back to her work, thinking the matter was settled. It wasn't the first time they had paid for a party. She just hoped there would be no more surprises. But there were. A week ago, Liam brought up a new topic. He said his mother was worried. Many relatives were coming, and they needed a place to stay. There are hotels in Napier, but they're expensive. A double room costs between $150 and $200 a night. If only 20 people came, it would cost thousands of dollars a week. It was unfeasible. He said maybe some could stay at their place. Hannah looked at him, alert and suspicious. "At our place? In Auckland?" He nodded. "Yes, for a few days, 3 or 4 people, we could manage. We can unfold the sofa bed, buy an air mattress." Hannah shook her head firmly. "No, our apartment has 2 bedrooms. There's no space. Let them stay in a hotel or travel for the day." Liam began to argue. "How can they travel for the day? They're coming from other cities. The round trip alone would take them half a day." Hannah interrupted him. "I said no. That's my final word." Liam pouted but didn't press further. Hannah thought the matter was settled. 3 days ago, he brought it up again, this time more cautiously and subtly. He said his mother was very worried. She wanted everyone to stay, not just for a few days, but for at least another week. The relatives hadn't seen each other for 5 or 7 years and needed time to catch up. Hannah didn't respond. She just gave him a long, cold look and left the room. Liam understood it was better not to bring it up again. Last night, Liam was unusually quiet. When he got home from work, he was engrossed in his phone during dinner. His fingers flew across the screen. He was writing something, frowning, sometimes shaking his head. Hannah noticed and asked him, "Is something wrong?" Without looking up, he nodded. "Yes, I'm messaging with Mum, finalizing the details for the party." Hannah shrugged and went back to what she was doing, reviewing a presentation for a client meeting the next day. Now, in the early morning, sitting in the kitchen, she drank her tea and thought there was something suspicious about her husband's behavior. It was clear he was up to something, but he hadn't dared to tell her yet. Hannah knew Liam well. In 8 years, she had learned all his habits. When he wanted to say something he knew she wouldn't like at all, he acted exactly like this. He would delay the moment, beat around the bush, try to create a favorable atmosphere. So, today or tomorrow, he would drop another surprise on her. Hannah was prepared. She finished her tea, rinsed the cup, and left it in the sink. She got up and went to take a shower. The hot water washed away the last traces of sleep and tension. In the shower, she closed her eyes, and under the stream of water, she thought about the day ahead. A 10 a.m. client meeting, then a team meeting, and work on a new project. A normal day. Half an hour later, she was ready to leave. Liam was still sleeping. He usually got up at 8. He started work at 10, and his office was nearby. Hannah put on a smart pantsuit, grabbed her laptop bag, and left the apartment. She closed the door carefully so as not to wake her husband. It was cool outside. It smelled of spring and damp earth. The sky was overcast, and it looked like it might rain. She turned up her coat collar, walked to the main road, and ordered an Uber with an app. She sat in the back seat. The driver greeted her. She nodded and asked him to take her to the office. The car pulled away. The workday passed as usual, busy. The client meeting went long. They discussed the concept for a new advertising campaign. The client was demanding and asked for half the presentation to be changed. Hannah argued, defending her point of view. In the end, they reached a compromise. The team meeting was quick. They divided up the week's tasks and discussed deadlines. Then she worked on the new project. She made charts, wrote copy, coordinated mock-ups with the designers. At lunchtime, she went to a cafe across the street, bought a Greek salad and a flat white, and ate quickly while reading the news on her phone. She went back to the office and continued working. The day flew by. At 6 p.m., she finished and prepared to go home. She turned off her computer, put the papers in a drawer, grabbed her bag, said goodbye to her colleagues, and left. It wasn't raining, but the wind had picked up, blowing leaves across the pavement. She took out her phone to order an Uber, and at that moment, she received a message from Liam. "I've made dinner. Come home soon." Hannah was surprised. Liam had barely cooked in their entire married life, maybe 3 times at most. This usually meant one of 2 things. Either he was about to ask for something serious, or he wanted to apologize for something. She replied, "On my way. Be there in 20 minutes." She ordered the Uber and left. At home, it indeed smelled of food. It wasn't a complicated dish, but the effort was clear. On the stovetop was a large pot of pasta with tomato sauce. On the table, a pre-packaged salad, sliced ham from the supermarket, and heated pesto from a jar. Liam had definitely made an effort. He was wearing a clean shirt and was sitting at the table, smiling. "You're here, honey. Sit down. Let's have dinner. I left work early today to surprise you." Hannah greeted him, sat opposite, and put her bag on the floor. They began to eat. Liam was unusually talkative. He told her about work, that they had started a new project with an important client, that his boss had praised him. He joked and laughed. Hannah responded with monosyllables. She listened, but inside she was tense. She felt that something important was coming. This dinner was no coincidence. When they finished, Liam leaned back in his chair, took a deep breath, and rubbed his hands together like someone preparing for something important, and said, "Hey, I've been thinking, it's only 10 days until Mom's birthday. She's put so much effort into preparing everything. It would be great if the party was truly special and unforgettable." Hannah nodded. "Yes, the restaurant is booked, the cake too. Everything will go well." Liam, still smiling, continued. "You know, it's been a long time since the family got together. The last time was at Uncle Barry's wedding, and that was 7 years ago. We haven't seen some of them for over 10 years, and Mom is really looking forward to seeing everyone. It's her 60th, you understand?" Hannah nodded again, guessing what was coming next. Her heart started beating a little faster. Her instinct warned her that something big was about to drop. Liam took another deep breath, smiled even wider, and blurted it out, almost in one rushed breath. 75 guests are coming for my mom's birthday, and they're all staying at our house for a month." Hannah froze with her fork in her hand. For a few seconds, she just stared at her husband. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. She was trying to process the words, 75 guests. For a month. In their 2-bedroom, 70-square-meter apartment, Liam was still smiling. He clearly expected her to clap with joy and say, "How wonderful." He must have imagined she would be thrilled with the idea. "What do you think?" he asked, not losing his smile. "Isn't it great? Mom has already planned everything in detail. Everyone's coming. Even Grandma, who's 85 but still full of beans. Uncle Barry's family, 4 people. Auntie Carol and her husband, 2. Cousin Mark's family, 5. Cousin Sophie's family, the cousins and distant relatives I don't even know. Mom's friends, her relatives, colleagues from the school where she worked, and the neighbors from Napier. Mom gets on with everyone on her street. Anyway, a whole crowd of people." He spoke breathlessly, gesticulating. "We're going to celebrate in a big way. Mom has already prepared a detailed schedule for the whole month. First day, the official party at the restaurant. Speeches, congratulations, dancing. Second day, a tour of Auckland. Mom wants to show everyone the city, the Sky Tower, the waterfront. Third day, an outdoor picnic in Cornwall Park with a barbecue. Fourth day, to the theater. Mom has already chosen a ballet performance. Fifth day, a visit to a museum. She wants to show them the Auckland Museum. Sixth day, a trip to the Waitakere Ranges. A friend of hers lives there. And so on for the whole month, something new and interesting every day. It will be unforgettable." Hannah continued to look at him in silence. Inside, she felt not anger, but an icy calm that was taking over. Liam didn't notice her silence and continued. "And they'll all stay here, in our house. Mom says, why waste money on hotels when we have our apartment? Of course, it will be a bit crowded, but we're family, right? It's no big deal to be a little uncomfortable. The important thing is to be all together. We'll give the bedroom to Grandma. At her age, she needs her own space. We'll sleep on the sofa in the living room. Uncle Barry's family can sleep in the kitchen on fold-out beds. The kids can sleep on the floor in sleeping bags. They'll love it. It will be like camping. And we'll fit the others in somewhere. There's room for everyone. Besides, they won't all come at once. Some earlier, some later. So, in the worst-case scenario, there will only be about 40 of us at a time, not 75. Hannah slowly put her fork down on the plate. Something inside her made a quiet, almost inaudible click, but it was definitive and irreversible, like a switch being flipped. She looked at her husband. He was still smiling, ecstatic, waiting for her approval. She picked up her plate, on which a little pasta was left. She ate it all slowly, methodically, without rushing. She chewed the food while looking out the window. Liam started to get a little restless. "Why aren't you saying anything? Aren't you happy? Come on, it'll be great. A party like this is remembered for a lifetime." Hannah didn't answer. She ate every last bite, chewed it, and swallowed. She picked up a napkin, neatly wiped her mouth, and placed it on the table. She stood up, took her plate to the sink, and put it inside along with the fork. She turned on the tap, rinsed the plate, turned off the tap, and dried her hands with a tea towel. Liam followed her every move with his eyes. His smile began to fade. "What's wrong? Say something." She, without a word, left the kitchen and went to the bedroom. Her steps were silent but firm. She opened the wardrobe and from the top shelf took down a large suitcase, a black one with wheels. It was the one she used for work trips. She placed it on the bed, opened the zipper, and started packing. Methodically, without haste but quickly, she folded 2 pairs of jeans and put them at the bottom. 4 t-shirts, a warm jumper, a casual dress, and another slightly dressier one. She took a pile of underwear from a drawer and put it in the suitcase along with some socks. She also packed a toiletry bag with her personal items that she took from the bathroom. Liam appeared in the bedroom doorway. His eyes were wide. "What are you doing? You're not actually packing, are you?" Hannah didn't answer. She continued packing. She took a book from a shelf, a mystery novel she had been wanting to read for a long time but had never had time for. She put her phone charger, headphones, passport, and all her bank cards into the suitcase. "Hannah, you're scaring me. What's going on? Why aren't you saying anything?" Liam's voice trembled as he took a step into the room. Hannah zipped up the suitcase and lifted it. It was a little heavy, but it didn't matter. She turned to her husband and looked him directly in the eyes. Without emotion, calmly, she said, "I'm leaving." Liam was dumbfounded, opening and closing his mouth. "What do you mean you're leaving? Where? Why?" Catalina walked past him and dragged the suitcase to the entrance. Her movements were precise and confident. She knew exactly what she was doing. She put on a pair of sneakers, comfortable shoes for the journey, took her jacket from the coat rack, put it on, and zipped it up. She grabbed the handle of the suitcase. Liam ran after her, his voice increasingly filled with panic. "Wait a minute. Let's talk. What's wrong? Why are you reacting like this? What upset you so much?" "I meant well." Hannah opened the front door. A gust of cold air entered the apartment. She turned one last time to her husband. She looked at him calmly, almost with indifference. "I'm not angry. I'm just leaving. Your 75 guests. Your month-long party, your 2-bedroom apartment, all yours. Your party, your problem." She stepped out into the hallway, closed the door, and began to drag the suitcase. Liam flung the door open again, came out in his house slippers, and shouted after her, "Where are you going? Come back here right now. This is crazy. Let's talk properly. I don't understand what's happening." Hannah calmly walked down the stairs. One step, then another. The wheels of the suitcase rumbled. She didn't turn back or respond. Liam shouted something else from above, but she was no longer listening. She went out onto the street. The night was cool. The wind ruffled her hair. She took out her phone, opened the Uber app, and requested a ride to Auckland Airport. A car was assigned. It would arrive in 3 minutes. Hannah waited at the entrance of the building, looking at the street. As soon as the car started moving, she took out her phone and opened her banking app, the joint account where they saved for common expenses. There was $4,500 in it. It was money they saved for repairs, holidays, and emergencies. Hannah, without hesitation, transferred $4,400 to her personal card. She did a quick calculation in her head. $2,000 was the money she had contributed in recent months. The other $2,200 was her rightful half of the joint savings. Simple maths, $100 remained in the joint account. If Liam was thrifty, it would last him a week. If not, that was his problem. Next, she opened another banking app for the joint credit card. The limit was $5,000. They normally used it sparingly, only when necessary, but the card was in her name. Liam was just an authorized user. With 2 clicks, Hannah blocked the card. The system asked for confirmation, and she confirmed. Card blocked. Access denied to all users. Now Liam couldn't pay for the cake, the restaurant, or anything else. Thirdly, she opened another app for her personal salary account. Liam had access to this account as a trusted person. She had set it up that way a year ago, just in case. Hannah went to the settings, found the authorized persons section, selected Liam, and pressed remove. The system asked for confirmation, and she confirmed. Access denied. Now he couldn't even check the balance, let alone withdraw money. The phone vibrated. It was Liam. Hannah looked at the screen, her husband's photo, the name Liam, the ringtone. She rejected the call and left the phone on her lap. Almost instantly, it vibrated again. Liam again. She rejected it again and sent him a short message. Don't call. She put the phone on silent, leaving only the vibration. The phone continued to vibrate every 30 seconds. Hannah ignored it, looking out the window at the passing city at night. The streetlights, the shop windows, the few pedestrians. The trip to the airport took 40 minutes. There wasn't much traffic. At the airport, she paid the driver, got out of the car, dragged the suitcase, and entered the terminal. It was crowded, noisy, and the departure boards were flickering. Hannah went to an airline counter and stood in a short queue. It was her turn. A young employee in a uniform smiled at her. "Good evening. How can I help you?" Hannah said calmly. "The first flight to Wellington." The employee typed on the computer. "1 moment, please. There's a flight leaving in 2 hours at 11:30 p.m. There are seats left in economy and business. Which do you prefer?" Hannah thought for a moment. Business was 3 times more expensive, but it would be quieter and more comfortable. No, this was not the time for luxuries. "Economy, please," she said. The employee nodded. "That's $200. How would you like to pay?" Hannah gave her her personal card, paid, and received the printed boarding pass. She checked her suitcase. It was within the weight limit. She received the luggage tag and went through security. She took off her jacket, put it on the conveyor belt, and walked through the metal detector. She had forgotten to take her phone out of her pocket. She took it out, went through again, and this time it didn't beep. She collected her things and went to the departure lounge. She sat in a chair next to a large window overlooking the tarmac. She took out her phone. 5 missed calls from Liam, 15 messages. She opened the message list and skimmed them. "Hannah, please pick up the phone." "What's going on? Where are you?" "Call me now. This doesn't make sense. Come back. Let's talk. I don't understand why you're reacting like this. Mom is trying to pay for the restaurant, and the card isn't working." "What have you done?" "I checked the joint account, and there's only $100 left. Where's the rest? The credit card isn't working either. You blocked it, didn't you, Hannah? This is insane. Please say something." Hannah didn't reply to any of them. She called her mother. "Mom, I'm coming to Wellington. I'll be late, around 2 inches the morning. Can you pick me up?" Her mother replied by message a minute later. "Darling, what happened? You have to work tomorrow." Her voice sounded worried but calm. Hannah wrote, "I'll explain everything later. Just come get me. The flight is at 11:30. I land at 12:45. "Okay, darling, I'll pick you up. I'll be waiting." Hannah put her phone away, leaned back in the chair, and closed her eyes. Physical and emotional exhaustion suddenly washed over her, but inside she felt a great calm. No doubts, no regrets, just absolute clarity. The phone vibrated again. Liam. This time, Hannah decided to answer. She put it to her ear. He started shouting immediately, without letting her say a word. "Where are you? What is all this?" "Mom just called saying she can't pay for the restaurant." The card was declined. I checked our joint account, and there's only $100 left. Where is the other $4,400? I tried to pay with the credit card, and it's blocked too. It was you. Why? Where the hell are you? When are you coming home? His voice was breaking, and he was out of breath. Hannah listened in silence, waiting for him to vent. When he paused for a moment to catch his breath, she said in a flat, emotionless voice, "I'm at the airport. I'm going to Wellington, to my mother's house. I'm leaving in an hour. I've blocked the cards and taken the money from the account. It was my money. $2,000 was my contribution. And the rest was my share. I have the right to do it. I'm filing for divorce. The apartment is yours, so you pay the mortgage. I renounce my claim to it. I'm not coming back. You deal with your 75 guests and your month-long party." She heard him gasp on the other end of the phone, then a thud as if the phone had been dropped, then a scraping sound as if someone was sliding down a wall to the floor, and a dull thump. He had probably sat down on the floor. Finally, a muffled sound, as if he had covered his face with his hands. Hannah hung up, blocked his number, turned off notifications, and put the phone in her bag. An hour and a half later, the boarding for her flight was announced. Hannah stood up and walked towards the gate. She showed her boarding pass, went through the jet bridge, and headed to the plane. She climbed the stairs and found her seat. Row 15, window. She sat down and fastened her seatbelt. The seat next to her was empty. She was lucky. The plane began to fill with passengers, families with children, elderly couples, young people with backpacks. A flight attendant walked down the aisle, checking seatbelts. The doors were closed. The plane began to move towards the runway. Hannah looked out the window, the lights of the airport, the silhouettes of other planes. The taxiing, the acceleration, the takeoff. The plane lifted off. Auckland was left below, getting further and further away. Hannah watched the city lights, which grew smaller with each moment, and felt not so much relief as a deep and total serenity. It had to happen sooner or later. It just happened today. The flight lasted an hour and a quarter. Hannah reclined her seat and dozed. The flight attendant offered her something to drink, but she declined. She just sat, looking at the darkness outside the window, thinking about nothing. She arrived in Wellington at 12:45 a.m. She got off the plane, entered the airport terminal, collected her suitcase from the baggage claim, and went out to the arrivals area. There were hardly any people. It was a late-night flight, and everyone dispersed quickly. Her mother was waiting for her at the exit. She was a small, slim woman with short hair and attentive gray eyes. She was wearing jeans and a warm jumper and had the car keys in her hand. As soon as she saw her daughter, she approached and, without asking any questions, gave her a tight hug. "Let's go home, darling." They got into her old but sturdy car. Her mother started it. They drove through the empty, nocturnal streets of Wellington. Hannah looked out the window. The city was asleep. Only a few windows were lit. Her mother drove in silence, not asking anything, knowing her daughter would talk when she was ready. They arrived in 20 minutes. Her mother's house was a flat in a 5-story building in a quiet neighborhood. They went up to the 3rd floor and entered. Hannah took off her jacket and shoes. Her mother put the kettle on. "Get changed. Come and we'll sit and talk." Hannah went to her old room. Everything was still the same. The narrow bed, the desk, the bookshelf with textbooks and novels from her student days. On the wall, a poster of the band she liked as a teenager. She quickly unpacked, hung her clothes in the wardrobe, left her cosmetics, and put on comfortable clothes. She returned to the kitchen. Her mother was already sitting at the table, and steam was rising from 2 cups of tea. Hannah sat opposite, and her mother pushed a cup towards her. "Tell me," Hannah told her the facts concisely, without emotion, that her husband had announced that 75 guests would be staying at their house for a month, that she had packed her bag in silence and left, that she had blocked the cards, taken her money, and left, that she was going to file for divorce. Her mother listened, nodding. Her face was calm, but there was pride in her eyes. When Hannah finished speaking, her mother said, "You did the right thing. I'm very proud of you, darling. You didn't let them take advantage of you. You respected yourself, and that's the most important thing." Hannah smiled faintly. She knew her mother would understand. Her mother poured more tea. "Stay here as long as you need. My home is always open for you. If you want to stay, you can look for a job here, or you can go back to Auckland without that burden. It's your decision." Hannah nodded. "Thanks, Mum." They drank their tea, washed the cups, and each went to their own room. Hannah lay down in her old bed, narrow but comfortable. She covered herself with the thin blanket. Outside, she could hear the rustling of leaves in the wind. In the distance, a dog barked. There was calm and peace. She closed her eyes and, for the first time in many years, fell asleep quickly and deeply, without a single worry on her mind. In the morning, Hannah woke up late, around 10. The sun was filtering through the curtains. The room was warm and bright. She stretched, got up, and went to the kitchen. Her mother had already left for work as a maths teacher at a high school. She started at 8. On the table was a note. "Breakfast is in the fridge, a slice of pavlova and a bacon and egg pie. Heat it up and eat. Get some rest. We'll talk tonight. Love you, Mum." Hannah smiled and stuck the note on the fridge with a magnet. She took out the pie, heated it in the microwave, and made a coffee. She sat by the window and had breakfast without rushing. Outside, Wellington was living its quiet life. People walked along the streets, cars passed, children were playing somewhere. After breakfast, she turned on her phone. When the screen lit up, notifications started flooding in after a few seconds. 53 missed calls from Liam, 32 messages, 5 calls from an unknown number. It must have been her mother-in-law. Hannah took a quick look at Liam's messages. At first, they were panicked. "Hannah, please come back. We can talk about everything. Don't be so drastic. Let's talk like adults, calmly." Then came the accusations. "You ruined everything on purpose. My mother has been crying hysterically for 2 days. The relatives are already starting to arrive and are asking me where they're going to stay. I don't know what to tell them. How am I supposed to host them now? I don't have money to pay for a hotel for them. You took it all." Then, attempts to appeal to compassion and pressure. "You know this isn't right. It's my family. It's my mother. It's her 60th birthday. She's dreamed her whole life of a party like this. Don't you feel bad? With all the effort she put into planning it, and you destroyed it all in a moment. How can you be so cruel?" And finally, the threats. "You're going to regret this. I'm going to sue you. You stole money from the joint account. That's illegal. I'll get it all back through a lawyer, and I'll take the apartment too. You'll be left with nothing." Hannah laughed when she read the last message. Sue her? On what grounds? She had taken her own money from an account she herself had deposited it into. She had blocked a card issued in her name. Legally, everything was impeccably clean. There was no infringement. The relationship property agreement they signed 3 years ago made it clear. As Liam had paid the deposit, the apartment was his. Hannah had agreed at the time, without much thought. Now she claimed no rights to the apartment and was glad to leave it to him with all its debts and mortgage. To set the record straight, she sent a single, brief message to Liam. "No need to go to a lawyer. It's a waste of money. The apartment is yours. I claim no rights to it. I will file for divorce by mutual consent this week. There is nothing to divide. We have no joint assets or children. Everything will be as simple and quick as possible. Do not contact me again." She sent the message and blocked his number. Next, Hannah opened her work email and wrote a letter to Mr. Robertson, her boss. "Dear Mr. Robertson, due to a serious family matter, I am forced to request a 2-week unpaid leave of absence. All ongoing projects were delegated to my colleague David yesterday. He knows all the details, and I have provided him with the documentation and client contacts. If the situation allows, I will return on the 15th. I apologize for any inconvenience. Send. Mr. Robertson replied in 40 minutes. "Hannah, don't worry. Family comes first. David will handle everything. Don't you worry. If you need anything, let me know. Take care." He must have thought someone was ill. Hannah offered no further explanation. She closed her email, got up, and went out onto the balcony for some fresh air. Wellington greeted her with bright sunshine and warmth. It was about 7 degrees warmer than in Auckland. In the distance, she could smell the sea. The coast was about 40 kilometers away, but the wind carried the salty scent. On the neighbors' balconies, Clothes were hanging out to dry, and there were pots of flowers. Below, somewhere, children were laughing and playing. Hannah, standing in the city, thought about the future. The divorce, maybe a change of job, a complete move, but for some reason, she felt no fear. On the contrary, she felt a lightness and freedom inside, as if she had taken off a heavy backpack she had been carrying for years. The phone rang, an unknown number with a Napier area code. Hannah answered and, without saying anything, just listened to an agitated and extremely irritated older woman's voice. Hannah immediately recognized her mother-in-law. "Yes, Sharon," without any formalities, went straight on the attack. Her voice trembled with rage. "How dare you? How could you do such a thing? You've completely ruined my party. The restaurant canceled the reservation because it wasn't paid for, and I couldn't order the cake because there's no money. The relatives are already starting to arrive, and I have nowhere to put them. I had promised everyone a big party. I had prepared a schedule, I had organized everything, and you destroyed it all in a moment. Liam is devastated. He's not eating, not sleeping. You did this on purpose. You are an evil, cold, heartless woman. Come back to Auckland right now and fix the mess you've made." Hannah listened to her tirade in silence, without interrupting, standing on the balcony, watching the clouds. When her mother-in-law, exhausted, paused for a moment, Hannah said calmly, "Ma'am, I am no longer your son's wife. I will be filing for divorce this week. Your problems have nothing to do with me. You and your son created this circus, so you two fix it. Do not call me again." She hung up and blocked the number. A minute later, the phone rang again. Another unknown number. Hannah didn't answer. Then she got a message on a messaging app from her mother-in-law's sister, her aunt. "Hannah, what happened? Your sister called me crying, saying you abandoned Liam. Is it true? Even if you've had a fight, you shouldn't do that. Go back and make up. Family is more important than any hurt feelings." Hannah replied briefly and clearly, "Auntie, we are getting divorced. It's a final decision. Please do not contact me again." She blocked her too. Throughout the day, she received calls from various numbers. Liam's relatives had somehow gotten her contact details and were sending her messages and calling to shame her, persuade her, and appeal to her conscience. Some insulted her, others pleaded, others threatened. Hannah didn't engage in discussions. She blocked them all, one by one. By evening, tired of it all, she simply turned her phone off completely. She decided to leave it off for a few days. Her mother came home from work at 6 after doing the shopping. They prepared dinner together. They made a mushroom and potato scramble and a fresh vegetable salad. They ate in the kitchen, chatting. Her mother told her about work, about the students, who sometimes brought her joy and sometimes disappointment. Hannah listened, nodding occasionally. After dinner, her mother asked her directly, "Are you sure about your decision? Divorce is a big step." Hannah nodded without hesitation, completely sure. "I can't live with someone who doesn't respect me, who makes decisions about me without consulting me." I tried to explain it to him. I set boundaries. He would promise, but nothing would change. 75 guests for a month. That was the last straw. Her mother hugged her. "Then it's the right decision. Better to be alone than in a bad relationship. You'll get through this. You're strong, and I'll always be by your side." Hannah leaned on her mother and felt her warmth and support. "Thanks for being here, Mom." The next day, Wednesday, Hannah went to the family court in Wellington. It was an old building, but inside it was clean and tidy. She went to the counter where applications were submitted. A middle-aged woman with glasses looked at her. "How can I help you?" "I want to file for divorce." Hannah handed her her passport and marriage certificate. The clerk took the documents and reviewed them. "Do you have any minor children?" "No." "Any property disputes?" "No. Everything is resolved." "Does your spouse agree to the divorce?" "I assume so. And if not, I want to proceed without him." The clerk nodded. "All right. Fill out this application. Here's the form." She handed her a paper. Hannah filled out the form. Name, date of birth, address, reason for divorce. For the reason, she wrote succinctly, irreconcilable differences. She signed and returned the form. The clerk reviewed it and stamped it. "There's a $30 fee. Pay at that machine and bring me the receipt." Hannah paid, returned, and handed her the receipt. The clerk gave her a confirmation slip. The divorce will be processed in a month, on the 14th. If your spouse does not appear, it will proceed according to your application. It is mandatory for at least one of you to be present. The divorce certificate is issued on the same day. Hannah thanked her and left the courthouse. She went into a cafe opposite, ordered a flat white, and sat by the window, watching the passers-by. People came and went, busy with their affairs. Some smiled, others frowned. Life went on. Her phone was still in her bag, turned off. She felt calm. That night at home, she turned on her phone. 120 messages, 70 calls. Without looking at them, Hannah opened her chat with Liam and wrote a single message. I have filed for divorce. The hearing is on the 14th at the Wellington Family Court. I don't care if you come or not. The divorce will happen regardless. She sent it, blocked his number again, and turned off her phone. On her tablet, she opened the chat with her friend from Auckland, Chloe. Chloe, I'm divorcing Liam. I've come to Wellington. If he calls or contacts you, don't tell him anything. Tell him you don't know where I am or what happened. Chloe replied instantly with a voice message. Hannah, finally. I'm so happy for you. Honestly, I always thought he wasn't right for you. You did the right thing, sending you lots of strength. If you need anything, let me know. I'll help in any way I can. Love you. And then by text. But what happened? Can you tell me? Hannah briefly told her about the 75 guests, the month, her departure, the blocked cards. Chloe sent a clapping emoji and several exclamation marks. You're a hero. I admire you. Liam is an idiot, and his mother is completely crazy. You did so well. You should have done it sooner. Chin up, my friend. We have to see each other when you come to Auckland. Hannah smiled and replied, Thanks, Chloe. You're the best. She closed the tablet. The following days passed calmly and regularly. Hannah rested, walked around Wellington, went to the park, sat on a bench to read, and met up with her old school friends, Sarah and Emily. They were surprised and happy, and they met at a cafe to chat, reminisce about old times, and catch up. Hannah didn't go into details, just told them the general story, that she was getting a divorce and planned to stay in Wellington for a while. A week later, on a Friday, Liam received the notice from the Wellington court. He sent Hannah a message. I got the notice. I'll be there on the 14th. Hannah read it but didn't reply. The 14th arrived. Hannah dressed normally. Jeans, a white blouse, a light jacket. It wasn't a special day. At 11 a.m., the scheduled time, she arrived at the court. Liam was already at the entrance. He looked terrible. He was gaunt, with dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, wearing a wrinkled shirt and old jeans. Seeing Hannah, he approached her and tried to speak. Hannah, listen. I think we're rushing things. Why don't we talk it all over again and try to fix it? She interrupted him coldly. There's no need, Liam. It's all decided. Let's just sign the papers and go our separate ways. He fell silent, lowered his head, and nodded. They entered the building, went up to the office. The same clerk with the glasses reviewed their documents and asked the standard questions. Do you both agree to the divorce? Hannah said yes. Liam, after a moment of silence, said quietly, yes. Do you have any objections to each other? Hannah said no, and so did Liam. Have you resolved your property disputes? Hannah said yes. Everything was resolved, and Liam nodded. The clerk handed them some papers. Sign here and here. They signed one after the other. The clerk stamped the documents, issued 2 copies of the divorce certificate, and handed one to each of them. The marriage is dissolved. Please take your certificates. Hannah took her certificate and put it in her bag. Liam stared at his paper as if he couldn't believe it. They left the office, went downstairs, and out onto the street. They stopped at the entrance. Liam turned to her. His eyes were red. Hannah, I'm so sorry. I didn't want it to end like this. I've realized I was wrong. It's too late, but I know it now. Hannah looked at him calmly, without anger, as if stating a fact. I know, but you didn't respect me, Liam. You made decisions that affected us both without consulting me. You put your mother and her wishes above me and our relationship. I tried to explain it to you. I set boundaries. I warned you. You would nod, promise, but in the end, you'd do the same thing again. 75 guests for a month. That was the last straw. I couldn't take it anymore. Liam lowered his head and nodded. I know. Too late, but I know it now. I'm sorry. He was silent for a moment, then asked quietly, Do you really not want your share of the apartment? I can pay you for it. Hannah shook her head. I don't want it. Keep it. I don't want anything from you, Liam. Not money, not the apartment, nothing. I just want to move on without this burden. He nodded, bewildered. All right. In that case, I wish you well, Hannah. He held out his hand to say goodbye. She shook it briefly. You too. And she turned and walked away. Without looking back, she arrived home. Her mother was at work. Hannah changed her clothes, made herself a cup of tea, and sat on the balcony. She took out the divorce certificate and looked at the stamps and signatures. It was a simple piece of paper, but it signified the end of a chapter in her life and the beginning of another. She filed it in a document folder and put it in a desk drawer. That evening her mother asked, How did it go? Hannah replied, Good, divorced, quick and drama-free. Her mother hugged her. Well done, my girl. Now you're free. The next day, Saturday, Hannah sat in front of her laptop, opened job websites, and started looking for work in Wellington. She found several interesting positions at advertising agencies and marketing firms. She sent her CV to 5 of them. Late that afternoon, one of them called her for an interview. On Tuesday, she went to the first interview. The company was small but had a good reputation. The director, a man in his 50s, reviewed her CV carefully and asked her questions about her experience and past projects. Hannah answered confidently, providing examples. The interview lasted an hour. At the end, the director said, I like you. I can offer you a salary of $85,000 a year plus project bonuses. Could you start in a week? Hannah thought about it. The salary was a little lower than in Auckland, but the cost of living in Wellington was less. Yes, I accept. Thank you. They shook hands and agreed on a start date. She went home and told her mother, I'm staying in Wellington. I found a job. I start in a week. Her mother was overjoyed. That's wonderful. I'm so happy to have you close. Are you going to live here, Hannah? For now, yes. If you don't mind. Later, I might look for my own place. Of course, I don't mind. Stay as long as you want. I love having you with me. Hannah called Mr. Robertson in Auckland to give her notice. He was surprised but accepted. I'm sorry to lose a good employee, but I understand. Family comes first. I wish you all the best, Hannah. If you ever want to come back, the doors are open. She thanked him and asked him to send her paperwork by post. He agreed. A month passed. Hannah was working at her new company and settled in quickly. Her colleagues were friendly, and the projects were interesting. She found a small studio apartment near her mother's house, cozy and bright. She furnished it to her taste with the basics: a bed, a desk, a small sofa, a wardrobe. Sometimes she would go to her mother's for dinner. They would cook together, watch movies, and chat for hours. Hannah felt truly alive, without tension, without the need to please anyone, without the burden of others' expectations. Liam sent her a message once, 2 months after the divorce. How are you? Hannah replied succinctly. Fine. He wrote back, glad to hear it. She didn't reply again. He never contacted her again. Half a year passed. Hannah had completely adapted to Wellington. She had made new friends with whom she went for coffee, to the cinema, for walks. She had a few dates but was in no hurry to start a serious relationship. She enjoyed being single for the first time in many years. One day, in a shopping mall, she ran into Laura, a mutual acquaintance of hers and Liam's. She lived in Auckland but had come to Wellington to visit relatives. Laura was surprised and happy to see her. They had coffee and chatted. Laura told her about the disastrous birthday of her ex-mother-in-law. Hannah, you have no idea what happened there, Laura began, her eyes sparkling. Sharon's party did happen in the end, but it was a total disaster. They had to cancel the restaurant because there was no money, and they gathered in her 2-bedroom flat in Napier. Not 75 people came, but barely 23. The rest, upon learning that the party had been scaled down, refused to come. They couldn't order the fancy cake either. They bought a regular one from a supermarket. And the atmosphere, what can I tell you, super tense. The relatives were whispering about the scandal of your departure. Laura took a sip of her coffee and continued. Liam looked exhausted, pale, thin, with no energy. Sharon was going around telling everyone how ungrateful you were and how you had betrayed them. But you know what? Not everyone agreed with her. Her late husband's brother, Uncle Barry, told her to her face, "Sharon, this is all your fault. You can't do things like this. 75 people for a month in a 2-bedroom flat? Are you mad?" Hannah did the right thing by leaving. Any normal person would have left. Sharon burst into tears and ran to her room. Total drama. Hannah smiled as she listened. Laura continued. And Liam tried to find you. He called our friends Chloe, but no one told him anything. Your friends covered for you well. In the end, he gave up. They say he's dating a girl from his company now. I don't know if they'll last. Hannah nodded. Well, good for him. Laura looked at her intently. And you? Are you happy? Hannah smiled. Yes, Laura, I'm happy. 2 years had passed since she left home. Hannah was sitting on the Wellington waterfront, drinking a coffee from a paper cup and looking at the harbor. It was a warm October afternoon. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. People were strolling by, couples, families. Someone was riding a bike, others were just sitting on the benches. Hannah thought about how, exactly 2 years ago, she had packed her suitcase and walked out of her apartment, not knowing what would happen next. She only knew one thing, that she could no longer tolerate disrespect, that she could not live with someone who did not value her, and that decision had changed everything. She didn't regret it for a single moment. Of course, it wasn't easy. The divorce, the move, a new job, a new city, but she had done it. And not only that, she had freed herself. Freed from the burden of others' expectations, from the need to please, from silently enduring what should not be endured. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from her mother. Darling, come for dinner. I'm making a shepherd's pie, your favorite. Hannah smiled and replied, On my way, Mum. Be there in 20 minutes. She finished her coffee, threw the cup in a bin, stood up, and began to walk calmly along the waterfront. She breathed in the evening air, looked at the harbor and the people around her. Life went on. A normal, simple life, and in it, Hannah respected herself and did not allow anyone else to do otherwise. What became of Liam? Honestly, she didn't care at all. It was his life, his decisions, his consequences. She had chosen hers. Freedom, dignity, self-respect, and she wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. Hannah walked along the waterfront, smiling at the setting sun, and for the first time in many years, she felt truly happy. And that was the best thing she could have ever done for herself.